Yeah, that's right, we are back. This week has been pretty exciting because I've been working on the ride-on grind. Okay, the ride-on grind. Let's see what we're talking about. The premise is pretty simple. Start up on the deck, get up a head of steam, hook the wheels onto the coping, grind along, and then when it's time to come back in, bit of a leap of faith, down the transition and ride away. Now this adds a little bit more theatre to starting a run. Previous to this I worked on rolling in over the coping and that was pretty emotional. For the ride-on grind, it's still pretty scary, but it adds all that noise and commotion, and I also find it gives me a little bit of time just to sort myself out, do my pre-flight checks before entering the bowl and starting my run. There's two different ways to execute the roll-on grind: backside and frontside. I learnt the backside roll-on first, and prior to this I learnt the backside axle stall, and then the backside 50-50 grind. Then I learnt some ride-on slappy grinds on the curb, and I found those were good for boosting the confidence, as there was not really that far to fall should it go wrong. Then I worked on learning the backside roll-on grind on straight steel coping, and finally on the curved pull coping. I think having the axle stall and the backside 50-50 grind in the back burner definitely helps, gives a bit more confidence. I was thinking it would be dead easy because one of the hardest things I find about the backside 50-50 grind is getting locked in. So coming in from the top sort of gets you out of having to do that bit. However, it does provide its own set of challenges, and it's pretty scary rolling up, trying to hook in, bit of a fear of the unknown. The main thing I found I had to do was commit my body weight into the transition, and that's probably the scariest thing. With the backside 50-50 grind, tend to be inside the transition sort of for free, so that needs to be engineered when you're doing the roll-on grind. When working with the straight coping, I found I could do a little carve, and that hooked the front wheel over and also forced the back wheel out with the centrifugal force of that little carve, and I could also commit my shoulders in, and I found that worked really nicely for getting locked into the roll-on grind on the straight coping. However, the curved coping provided a bit more of a challenge, so trying to get hooked into that one was a bit of a leap of faith. I had to trust that my toe side wheels would grip on the coping, try and keep my knees slightly bent, and also try and stay centred over the board. I found it was possible to get that front truck to dig in and you're off the front. Also, that front wheel could lip out, have to run across the coping. Eventually I found a way to come in, commit my head and shoulders over into the transition. Then I could grind around that pull coping, making a right old racket for as long as I dared, correct the back wheel, and then axle in and pump down the transition. Now the version I really wanted to get in the bag was the frontside roll-on grind. This in my opinion looks way more stylish, but the snag is it's a little bit more scary. Coming up with your back to the transition, falling backwards, trusting those heel side wheels will lock in, and also trying not to hang up on the way back in, which can be pretty emotional. So prior to attempting the frontside roll-on, I'd learnt the frontside axle stall and also the frontside 50-50 grind. I'd also tinkered with the frontside stand-up grind and also the frontside Smith grind. I've been meaning to try the frontside roll-on for quite a while, but fear was holding me back. So I went to the skate park, I decided enough was enough, threw myself at it and entered into a mini battle. Cool, crikey. Let's talk through some of the problems I was having. Number one was getting locked in. So to start with, I just brush the trucks across the coping and then carry on going across the deck, not even getting on at all. And that was purely because I wasn't leant back into the transition and I wasn't really committing to it in any way. The next stage was to try and get those wheels hooked in and travel around the coping. And I found the key for that was to stick my arse out a little bit. And that put me just enough into the transition to get those hillside wheels hooked on the coping and to start to travel around. I found the more I leant back, the better it was, because that centrifugal force would be equalled by my angle inside the coping. The next issue was the trucks viciously slipping off the coping, ending up on the toe side wheels. That was pretty alarming, but I found if I was quick enough, it wasn't the end of the world and I could save myself. The remedy for that was to either go faster, so there was more centrifugal force pushing the hillside wheels onto the coping, or not carving quite as hard trying to get onto the coping. Once I found my line and established the right amount of speed, I found I could hook onto that coping pretty much every time. It wasn't that hard because you're fully sighted as to where the coping is, and as long as I sort of committed my body weight out into the transition just a little bit, that would allow me to follow round. By far the hardest part of this is trying to come back in. So I did a few frontside 50-50 grinds just to remind myself how to come back in. And the slight snag was I like to cross lock my frontside 50-50 grinds. So that makes my exit out of them slightly different than having both of the hillside wheels pinched against the coping. Unfortunately, there was no way to learn coming back in without just fully committing and going for it. And on the first few, I managed to hang up, go over the front. As soon as I fell off and realised it wasn't that bad, that gave me the confidence to push through and I started to make a few. Okay, that's it for the ride-on grind video. Overall, I'd say they're not quite as scary as the roll-in, but they add a little bit of theatre to the start of the run and also allowed me to pump a little bit more speed than I would off of just your standard drop-in. They're probably overall a little bit easier to execute than the full 50-50 grind once you get them. However, they do pose their own set of challenges. Okay, let's run through the key points for the frontside roll-on. So overall, I found more speed was better. Coming in, try and get the wheels onto the coping and simultaneously commit your weight a little bit out into the ramp. This helps the wheels to press against the coping. Place the pressure on the heels to keep those wheels locked in. Follow the circumference of the coping round with the front shoulder whilst progressively bending the knees a little bit more. And when you want to come back in, just commit your weight, fall backwards, which is pretty scary. And then when it's time, pivot off of that back heel side wheel, placing all the pressure on the back heel to stop the hang up. Try and keep the knees nice and soft and then pump the transition so you can make use of all that extra speed to start your run. I'm going to keep working on these. There's a couple of variations I'd like to give a whirl. The first one is the ride-on lip slide. So coming in, pivot the board around 90 degrees into that lip slide position, slide along and then bring her in to start the run. I'd also like to work up to trying the front side ride-on stand-up grind. So sort of that 5-0 position, grinding round and then take her in that way. If you're interested in giving these a whirl, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Also, if you're new to the channel, feel free to hit subscribe. I make new videos every week. You can also follow me on Instagram at John Bishop Skate. As ever, my name's been John Bishop and I'm a middle-aged guy learning how to skate.